And this is how we welcome you to Artistic Spot, a show about art, talent, and entrepreneurship, where you are also the artist. In Artistic Spot, we're actors in our movies, singers in our musicals, and writers of our books. Speaking about singers in our musicals, today we have a very special guest. Donald Rupe, artistic director and co-founder of the Renaissance Theater, is sharing his story in Artistic Spot. Let's go ahead and check what Donald has to say about his background in musical theater.
My name is Donald Rupe, and I am one of the co-founders of Renaissance Theater Company in Orlando, and I'm an artist, theater artist. I grew up just outside of Orlando, actually, in St. Cloud and Kissimmee, Florida. And back then, to travel to Orlando was a kind of an event. I didn't visit Orlando very often as a kid, and it was like a big city in my eyes. So to live and work here now and to have my own company and do my own shows is literally a dream come true. It's amazing. I started doing theater when I was really 14, 15 years old at my high school. And it was an accident, really, in the beginning, as most good things are. Because I was a chorus kid and a band kid, actually. I played saxophone. And my chorus teacher convinced me to audition for the theater show, which was Godspell, which is so many people's first high school theater show. And I fell in love with it right away. Truth be told, I wasn't the best at it. I'm still not an actor, proudly. But I did love the collaborative nature of doing theater. And I met some of my best friends during that show, people who I'm still close with today. And so I think that's what it was, just finding, you build relationships in a different way when you're working in a theater as opposed to other art forms, in my opinion. I'm not sure if there's a specific event that solidified my wanting to do theater forever. To be honest, I was always involved in the arts in some way. Even as a young kid, I remember as early as second grade wanting to be like a chorus teacher. That was what I wanted to do. And that's probably because I met my chorus teacher, who ended up being a really influential person in my life. Her son actually works with me here at the Renaissance. And I think for me, I had a kind of a difficult upbringing, a difficult childhood, as many artists do. And so the arts and theater were an escape from that. And at some point, it changes from being an escape to being kind of a purpose, which is even better than an escape. So I think it was just that safety that I felt in all of the different arts endeavors that I experienced as a young kid that made it impossible for me to do anything else. Well, I think that my purpose is probably different from my company's purpose, and I think that's actually a great and important distinction to have, so that your life is not so wrapped up in what you do all of the time. My company's purpose is clear. It's to produce new works all of the time. And I think that's part of my purpose too. But as an artist, I feel like it's hard to nail down what your life's purpose is when you're in the middle of doing it. So I just really go where the creativity takes me. I'm not a good planner, as anybody who's worked with me would tell you. But I'm a doer, and I'm good at following inspiration and taking that inspiration to a complete product. So I think if I gave myself a purpose, it would just be to create. Maybe that's lame, but that's it. I started writing fairly recently. It's just been, maybe it's 6 years now since I started writing my own shows. And my writing process, Well, as far as I can tell, there is no like great. This is how everybody's process should be, but maybe mine is a little bit more scattered than my collaborators would like, in the sense that I really function very well on a deadline. Um, I don't function at all without a deadline. So I have this horrible process that where I get the idea for a show, and those ideas come from so many different places, but I'll get the idea for a show and I will set the opening dates for that show before ever writing a line or a lyric or anything. And I'll tell you that is extremely motivating to get started, which is the hardest part. And so that's where I start. Concept, honestly, I usually have a title before I do anything else. And then I try to cast, at least in my head, that helps me write a lot, to think about who I could see it potentially in each role. Because I find it easy to write for people. And then I narrow down the details from there. Like, what's the climax? And then I can kind of like narrow it down. And the songs kind of, honestly, I find it pretty easy to write music when I know what the gist of the song is. So if I know a character needs to say something here, once I figure that out, I can write the song pretty easily. If I had to describe myself in 3 words, first I would immediately think about, okay, how would my friends answer that question? And are those the answers that I would go with? Probably not. I would say stubborn, which is probably one of the things my friends would say, or a positive version of that, determined. Ambitious. I would hope to say loving in my own way. Well, I think being stubborn is like a big reason of why most artists are successful. Because in a positive light, that really is determination. It takes me a while to take no for an answer. I have to be really convinced that it's a no before I'll accept it. The ambition. I really feel like I'm so ambitious because I have had to be so creative. I grew up with not a lot of resources, and in creating theater, usually you are lacking resources, and it's like it's the ambition to overcome the lack of resources that really helps make things work. Loving, I don't know if everybody would refer to me like that. I know that they wouldn't, because I'm so stubborn. But I do it in my own way, and I try to show it in my own way. I might not appear to be the easiest to get along with to most people. A lot of that comes from being so shy. But I think I show my love in creating opportunities and in creating spaces that I hope people are comfortable being in, even if they don't realize I'm behind that, or that is a representation of who I am, if that makes sense. I grew up outside of Orlando, and my family situation was always a challenge. A very loving family, but a very messed up family. My close family members all passed away in succession every 2 years, starting when I was like 13 years old. So my older brother died of a heroin overdose when I was in 7th grade, and then my mom died of an opiate overdose when I was in 9th grade, and then my dad died a few years after that, causes unknown. So obviously those are challenges. But even before that, we didn't have a lot of money. We struggled to pay rent. I went sometimes without having a place to live, or we lived with friends, or I lived with friends. Especially after my dad died, after my mom died, my dad's sister took me in. My Aunt Diane, who's a very close influence to me. And honestly, that's when things started to look up for me, is when she kind of gave me the stability that I hadn't had growing up. I don't think that it is possible to make every negative situation a good situation. I actually think there are things that are black and white, horrible life things that people go through. So I think it was really important to me growing up that for whatever reason, at a very young age, I was able to accept the things that were around me and not see them as obstacles, even though they were obviously obstacles. I was just always determined to not let the negativity impact what I wanted. And so I think that's what it is just trying your best to look forward. And I think as a result of that, I think that's part of why I'm okay at what I do, is that the little things don't really get to me. Because at such a young age, I encountered so many really large life events that now the day-to-day struggles of putting on a theater show, which is stressful and very stressful for a lot of people. I don't find it difficult. So I think it's learning your lessons with every difficult situation that you encounter and applying the lessons you've learned to the next thing. It makes you stronger. And also, I would not be the artist that I am had I not experienced those life experiences so young. I was always an old soul, probably because I had to be, but definitely going through loss and grief and all of those things made me more mature, younger. But honestly, it took me, like I said, I just started writing 6 years ago, and it took me that long to really know how to express some of those emotions. And to be honest, I don't talk about it very often, so I probably still stifle a lot of those things, but I definitely grew from them. It's been so interesting, and wonderful and interesting experiencing what, I'm sure from the outside, looks like, and it is, I guess, a success story. And I do feel successful, but rarely do I feel satisfied. And I've done some reading, of other artists, and that feels like a common thread for people who like to create, is you don't feel finished ever. So I remember the one show that I did in New York City, I really built that up as though it was going to be this huge life moment, this climax. And I was sitting at opening night, and I just remember thinking, oh, this is not nearly as huge as I thought it was going to be. But in a good way. It's really put things in perspective. People put so much weight in doing art in New York City, specifically when it comes to theater. But my experience from that was that I feel just as satisfied and proud and motivated by my opening nights here in Orlando as I did at that one. A little bit more so, because here it comes with so much history, and I know so many faces in the room, and it's in a place that feels more my own. I kind of felt like a guest in New York, which I was. And also that was like a festival. I didn't do a Broadway show or anything like that. So I would be lying if I said I would like to do a Broadway show. I absolutely would. But the idea of thinking that was not even in my vocabulary 6 years ago, to even dream about that possibility. I wouldn't even consider it. But it was at that show that I did, which was Flying Lessons, made me think, oh, well, okay, maybe that's not a complete far off thing. But honestly, I would be fine if that doesn't happen. Right now, my goal is to make Renaissance Theater Company the coolest place to be in Orlando, and to give people an opportunity and to show other theater makers and other artists that you can do things differently and appeal to a younger audience, and treat artists well, and do all of the progressive things that we should be doing as arts organizations. So I'm really into that right now. I am so happy with the way that my life has turned out. When I think back to growing up compared to where I am now, it's like night and day. Like you would have never thought that this would be the life that I'm living. So I don't really think in terms of what's left to do, because I've pretty much done almost everything that I could have even dreamed of doing. I have the best friends anybody could ask for. I'm sitting in a building that I get to create my own shows in. I'm really lucky and happy. So I don't really think there is like a personal objective left. I'd like to travel more one day. I'd like to have a lot of money. But I don't have I'm doing it all that I want to do, really. We have literally so much going on all of the time. So first I'll say every Monday we do something called Musical Mondays here. I think it's the coolest new thing in Orlando, and people should come check it out. It's a cabaret weekly, and then we have an open mic, and it's become this mecca of Orlando arts entertainers. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is on April 21st, and I'll be mad at myself if I chose the wrong date, we brought back a show called Ain't Done Bad, which premiered at Fringe last year. And it's a guy named Jacob Carr, who is from Orlando, who created this show that's a beautiful dance show about coming out. So that's the next thing, and that will absolutely sell out. So I'm trying to get people to get their tickets early. My mantra has almost become cliche now because I use it so often in all the shows that I write, but it's stolen from Augusto Boal, who is a theater maker. He founded Theater of the Oppressed, and he had this phrase, "Have the courage to be happy," which I have commandeered as my own. It's part of it tattooed right here. But that's my all-encompassing thing that I'd like people to remember. And I think I hope I embody that, that persistence that I talked about. When I was a teacher, I would talk about that phrase and what it means to, sometimes happiness is a choice. Not always, in my opinion, but sometimes it is, and you have to have the courage to seek it out.
Thank you for watching this episode with Donald Rupe. We're waiting and looking forward to having you in our next time on the next story of Artistic Spot. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and don't forget, in Artistic Spot, where you are also the artist.